Katie Miller's darkest secret is finally out. This is the story she couldn't hide. And she never thought we'd find this, but public story, her whole public image has just collapsed. And this woman has a serious problem with receipts. And oh my God, this woman is so two-faced. So last week, a Republican senator unexpectedly dumped over 1,000 pages of one powerful guy's private diaries onto the internet. They thought this was going to be exactly the ammunition they needed to take him down. But instead, what reporters actually found when they read the notes is they didn't find a villain or a villainous confession. They found Katie Miller's name. They found Katie Miller's name all over it. And they found what Katie Miller was doing in private while she was literally pregnant with Stephen Little Bitch Miller, allegedly, maybe, we don't know. But Katie Miller was caught living a double life. We know this for sure because these diary entries log dozens of desperate, lonely, late night phone calls. Late night phone calls made by Katie Miller to this man when no one else was around, when she needed comfort and when she needed assurance. And she needed that from anyone but her husband, Stephen Little Bitch Miller, the man who looks like a angry, racist, hard-boiled egg. The leak accidentally exposed a relationship literally no one saw coming. I didn't see it coming, just knew she was two-faced. And she managed to keep it buried for over 5 years, while, of course, telling a completely different story online. But now the receipts are out and they're not coming back. And I'm going to show you exactly what Katie Miller was caught lying about and with who she was texting you up to, because, oh my God, this woman is full of shit. And real quick, if you're new here, I'm Loren Piretra. Willa Piretra and we do this every single day. And before we begin, we got to give you a warning. Stephen Miller, he's emerged from the Los Angeles sewer system, and it might unfortunately be mating season. He knows his wife is making late night calls, and he's currently drying himself on a warm sidewalk. He came out of the sewer and he's drying himself like a invasive lizard. And he's also asking strangers as they walk on by this lizard man, he's asking them about their birthright citizenship and their papers. So I need you to stay safe. I need you to help me get that man back in the gutter, in the sewer where he belongs, where he feasts. And you can only do that by subscribing, hitting subscribe, following us wherever you get your podcasts, wherever you watch and listen, leaving us a 5-star rating wherever you watch and listen, a comment, 6 words or more, saving, sharing this video with a friend, or hyping if you're watching on YouTube. All these actions are going to create a protective barrier around you, your loved ones, and they're going to force Stephen Miller back into the drain. Okay. So, and none of this Stephen Miller-ness, none of this Katie Miller calls, none of this is even the most messed up thing that Katie Miller touched this week, because the bar is truly in hell. She just had Fox News host, whatever she is, Laura Ingraham, on her podcast.
You're the mother of 3 children.
Yes.
At what point in your career did you decide to have children?
Well, it's a long story, but I had breast cancer in 2005, and I was engaged at that time. And then that kind of, the cancer was detected, and then the engagement was off, and we were going to have kids right away. And I was like, God, I felt called to have children.
First of all, hold on to that, ladies, listeners of Turning Point USA, anything. Do you hear what she said? She said she got breast cancer, and what happened to her partner? Yeah, maybe that's why you don't put all your eggs into the basket of a man who could leave you when you have breast cancer. And also, I've never noticed that Katie Miller has a neon Donald Trump quote sign. I can't even, but I digress.
And so after kind of the treatments wrapped up, I did chemo and radiation. And it wasn't fun, but I got through it. And I kept doing my radio show throughout, which really kept me going, and my friends and my family. I started the process of examining adoption, and it was a multi-year process, and it was a lot. I tried to adopt domestically, but a couple of those fell through, and it was really demoralizing.
Seems pretty normal-ish if you don't know the full background here, and trust that all this context is heating up for the bigger story with a secret relationship Katie Miller thought was buried. However, if you're not familiar with Laura Ingraham and her personal life, congratulations, but unfortunately I'm gonna give you the quick skinny. So she is known for a lot of controversy. She's a right-winger, but one of the biggest controversies of her career came after Parkland. So we all know what happened in Parkland, a school.
A showdown between 17-year-old Parkland High School survivor David Hogg.
We say no more.
And Fox News anchor Laura Ingraham.
And they scapegoated their favorite boogeyman and political enemy, the NRA.
Advertisers pulling support from her show after taunting Hogg on Twitter about being turned down by several colleges, writing, David Hogg rejected by 4 colleges to which he applied and whines about it. Dinged by UCLA with a 4.1 GPA. Totally predictable given acceptance rates.
She literally called out the survivor of a mass murder and made fun of me. Who in their right mind would support that?
And instead of advocating for common sense gun reform, protecting kids, she decided, I'm going to use my platform to debate 17-year-old survivor David Hogg, who's now gone on to become a Democratic strategist and a big voice on the left. She went to debate David Hogg on gun policy, and she mocked him for getting rejected from a few colleges, and it backfired spectacularly. Hogg organized a advertiser boycott. So dozens of companies pulled out their ads from Laura Ingram's show, and it became one of these like major PR disasters for Fox News. One of the worst that they'd seen in years. So that's one of her things, like picking fights with 17-year-old school shooting survivors. She also pushes hardcore anti-immigration slop. This matters. So she's argued that immigration is changing American culture and demographics while also being a single mom who adopted 3 kids internationally, a daughter from Guatemala and 2 sons from Russia. She adopted her youngest right before Russia permanently banned Americans from adopting orphans there.
You know firsthand what it takes to legally bring children into this country. Has that shaped your personal views on immigration and your philosophy on how others should be able to do that?
Yeah, I think that, adoption, I think a lot of people think, and have said, well, why did you go overseas to get a kid? Like, there's all these kids here who, the sad thing is, because there's so much abortion here, there aren't the kids to adopt here that there was in many decades past, far fewer. So that's number one.
Because of things like sex ed and access to birth control and more resources, there are fewer teen pregnancies.
And number two, there is a need internationally for children who are abandoned, who have no one. And in a lot of countries, and Russia doesn't allow adoption anymore. Obviously, with the war, we wouldn't be doing that. But I think one of my sons was one of the last kids out of Russia. Children are children. They're children. Like, bringing them into the country legally versus putting them in a migrant caravan to be raped and tracked and is something completely different. So I don't think there's no disconnect there. But if you can help a child in need, I certainly help. I think my fair share of charitable endeavors, but if you can help a child in need who has no one, I think that's what it's all about.
Well, we were so close there, so close. Laura Ingraham staring into a microphone and saying, children are children. So close. So she spends 5 nights a week on TV talking about how migrant families are toxic. They're an invading army.
As more illegal immigrants are rushing the border, more kids are being separated from their parents and temporarily housed in what are essentially summer camps.
But when she wants to fly to Guatemala or Moscow and bring home a kid to complete her family, children are children. So there's a special place in hell for people who want privileges and rights for their families, but not everyone else's, just for them. So she actually uses the nightmare scenario of kids being abused in a migrant caravan. Wait till she hears about ICE and detention centers to justify her own international adoptions. And listen, not my place to ask questions about other people's families or adoptions, whatever, but she gets to play this like savior rescuing orphans abroad while simultaneously demanding that we militarize the southern border against parents who are trying to do the exact same thing to protect their own kids. And the most twisted part of all this isn't even Ingraham. It's the woman who she's talking to. She is saying this to Katie motherfucking Miller. And keep that level of shamelessness in mind, because we still haven't even gotten to the secret 2 a.m. phone calls. But Katie Miller is married to Stephen Little Bitch Miller. Stephen Little Bitch Miller is the architect of the family separation policy. He drafted the blueprint to rip thousands of terrified children away from their parents at the border, out of their homes, from school pickup, and throw them into chain-linked holding facilities, into internment camps, into work camps, where many of them have died.
But if every single person who wanted to enroll in SNAP or enroll in Medicaid or enroll in public housing was in a shared database that the federal government had access to verify age, citizenship, criminal record, other basic biographic facts, that single step alone would save taxpayers hundreds of billions of dollars.
Look at JD Vance, like, nodding his fat fucking face. So first of all, can you blame Katie Miller for the late night calls at this point? If I was married to that thumb, that hard-boiled egg-looking man, my whole text history would be like, you up? Just a whole straight top to bottom. And listen, on Miller and his Millerisms, if every single person who wanted to enroll in SNAP, Medicaid, or public housing was in a shared database that the government had access to, this is a very flawed argument, because fraud in programs like SNAP and Medicaid exist but are so relatively limited compared with total program spending. So do we want to talk about the deflection pool? Most overpayments result from administrative errors when it comes to SNAP and Medicaid, or changes in eligibility, not intentional fraud. These are facts by the numbers. I would argue that the privacy and civil liberties costs of a centralized database would probably outweigh the savings. Think about that. And then existing agencies already share some data for eligibility verification. And then what? We're going to just have a centralized database? If we want to save money, here's the thought, maybe we abolish ICE, who have received $74.9 billion in additional multi-year appropriations, including, we're talking about $45 billion for detention centers, for detention capacity. And you know who these contracts are awarded to? For-profit prisons. GEO Group, CoreCivic. If you've been with me since the start, I've played their earnings calls. They were jazzed. They were thrilled when they were awarded these contracts. They were smiling ear to ear. You could hear it through the fucking call. But then there's also $29.85 billion for ICE ops, transportation, personnel, equipment, all that pepper spray to go to all those kindergartners. And that money goes towards, just think about this for a second, that money goes towards employing the dumbest, laziest, most chronically unemployed, violent men from your hometown. Just think, I could picture like 7 of them right now, all unemployed, all waiting to get an opportunity to feel power, drunk off of the power, pepper spraying everyone, doing God knows what. So meanwhile, Katie Miller is just sitting there with another Nazi to Nazi, just nodding along with a deep empathy about helping children in need, while her own husband makes it his life's work to inflict permanent trauma on brown children who were just begging for help, whose families needed to escape war zones, who wanted to come here for a better life. They sat in her little cozy, corny podcast studio with a neon sign of Donald Trump, quotes, patting each other on the back for their boundless compassion for foreign orphans. Guys, read the fucking room, completely ignoring. They want us to forget that they built and cheered on the exact machine that destroys families at the border. They are sociopaths. So yeah, the public stance on empathy, completely fake, but Katie Miller's late night phone calls, that's where the mask falls off, which brings us back to the one question she never wanted answered. Who is Katie Miller actually begging for help?
Sorry, don't have an answer to that question. Sorry, yes.
From when the cameras weren't rolling in her little studio. It's time to name the man she tried to ruin and the secret she thought she was going to take to the grave. The man that she wants locked up, the man that she was all up in the diary of, is Dr. Anthony Fauci, an American hero. The man she was calling in the middle of the night, Dr. Anthony Fauci. Yeah, the same person she's been publicly demanding be thrown in prison. What an asshole. Like, the big secret here is way more embarrassing for the Katie Miller pod and the Katie Miller brand, because back in the spring of 2020, when she was secretly 10 weeks pregnant, she caught COVID. And she wasn't treating Fauci like a monster she claims he is, not back then. She was treating him like her personal on-call doctor and therapist. She was leaning on this man heavy emotionally. She trusted him because he was the top infectious disease expert in the country. She was begging him to help protect her and her own baby's life. She relied on him to talk her through midnight panic attacks. She repeatedly sought his advice and reassurance. Dr. Anthony Fauci had this all in his diary. According to his notes, she was calling him constantly for medical advice. I'm going to read a page from one of the reports. In quotes, "I am calling Katie frequently to check on her couple time per day." Fauci wrote in notes dated on May 9th, 2020. Then he wrote, "She is very anxious about getting very ill since she is 10 weeks pregnant. Tonight, she had an anxiety reaction. I calmed her over the phone." Katie Miller, you are such a jerk. You are such a jerk. Oh my God. So when she had a full-blown panic attack in the middle of the night, it wasn't Stephen Little Bitch Miller who calmed her down. No. He was scurrying out of somebody's crawl space. He was hissing at the moon. She called Dr. Anthony Fauci. Dr. Anthony Fauci wrote that he called to check on her frequently and advised both her and Stephen Little Bitch Miller, even calmed her during what he described as an anxiety reaction. You can interpret that clinically as you will. She literally says he caused decades of harm to children, but was the exact person she ran to when she was scared for her own children. Katie Miller argued that Fauci should be in jail and has blamed him again for significant harm during the pandemic, demanding he be in prison. And after the diary became public, she said Fauci was never her friend or doctor, but merely a work colleague. I don't know about you, but I don't call my colleagues in the middle of the night. That would be weird. She claimed she was only cordial with him. I also don't lean on people that I'm cordial with when I have anxiety attacks in the middle of the night, especially, or with intimate personal health details. And she said she wanted to prevent him from leaking against her or her husband. Well, Katie Miller, this is the bed you made for yourself, sister girl. That's what you get for being a dick. That's what you get. And just, I want everyone to remember this. While all these people are fear-mongering about infectious diseases, RFK Jr. is going on TV saying, okay, yeah, actually, you should get the measles vaccine. I don't want to be responsible for any more deaths. They're safe and they're effective. Katie Miller, while her husband is crying about how communists want to give you affordable childcare and healthcare, and she's going on the internet saying vaccines are going to give you autism or whatever the fuck she's saying, just know all of these people, it's all a farce. They're all a bunch of BS. It's all a bunch of BS. And they will protect themselves and they will rely on health and science behind closed doors. They just don't want you to have access to it. They don't want you to know because it will break their public image. And that's all they really care about at the end of the day. They don't care about you dying uninsured. They don't care about you dying from an infectious disease. They care about themselves. And I need you to share this video. I need you to share this video with people who are vaccine skeptics. Maybe post it on your Facebook. Let people know that it's all a goddamn sham. Okay? And leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Be back with more.